Welcome back to the GCSE Maths Pro YouTube channel. Today's video is the final part of expanding brackets, and specifically we'll be looking at triple brackets. This is a higher tier topic only, so if you're doing foundation, you can ignore this video. We're going to jump right in and have a look at our first question with expand and simplify x plus 3 times x plus 8 times x plus 5. You do need to make sure that you understand, first of all, the concept of what expanding is, but also how to expand double brackets before doing this video and these questions, because basically we're going to be doing expanding double brackets and then we're going to be bringing in the final bracket, okay? So if you're not too sure about that, definitely go back and check out that video first. So the way that we're going to expand and simplify triple brackets is we're going to just focus on the first two brackets first and expand them as if they are double brackets. And then we're going to bring that final bracket in at the end and expand that afterwards, okay? So it's kind of like expanding two sets of double brackets, basically. So we're going to expand with the same method as I do with expanding double brackets. We're going to do x times x, which obviously gives us x squared. Then we've got x times 8, which is positive 8x. Then we'll move on to this 3 here. So 3 times x, which is positive 3x. And finally, 3 times 8, again both positive, so plus 24. So I've expanded that. Expand is always step 1, isn't it? Expand that. Now before I deal with this final bracket, I'm going to go simplify this because, as you know, we should end up with these two terms in the middle that we can simplify. So I'm going to do x squared, obviously 8x plus 3x is 11x, and plus 24. So now it's a little bit smaller, we've only got 3 terms to deal with. Then what you're going to do is bring in this final bracket again. So I'm going to draw brackets around this and bring this back here. Now this is exactly the same as expanding double brackets again, because as you can see, we've only got 2 brackets. However, you can see the first bracket has 3 terms in it. So it can get a little bit complicated. Okay, a lot of people do it in different ways, but if you just follow it in the same order that I do it, you should see that in the end everything will simplify really well again. So technically we're going back to step 1 and we're expanding again. I'm just going to use the exact same method. So I'm going to start off with this x squared and multiply it by both terms in the second bracket. So I'm going to do x squared times x, which gives me x cubed. Then x squared times 5, which gives me plus 5x squared. Then I'm going to move on to the middle one, which is 11x, and times that by both terms in the second bracket. What I'm going to do is change the colour just so that you can see very clearly, at least in this first example, because they are going to overlap each other in this case. I'm just going to use pink. So I'm going to do 11x times by that first x in the second bracket. So I've got 11x squared, then 11x times by the 5, which is 55x. And then finally I've got this term here, the 24, so I can do that underneath. Now let's just change the colour again. So 24 times x is plus 24x, and finally 24 times 5, which gives me plus 120. So you can see here, even though I've expanded double brackets technically, because there were 3 terms in the first one, I've actually ended up with having to multiply 6 things, and I should have 6 terms. Now again, if you follow this exact same order, you can see that when we come to then simplify again, it's very straightforward because everything in terms of like terms, so we mentioned like terms in our expanding double brackets video, like terms is how we simplify, isn't it? We're looking for terms that are the same in terms of, do we have x cubed in multiple places that we can put together? Do we have x squareds, x's, so on, just whole numbers on their own that we can put together? In this case, you can see we don't have any other x cubed, so that will just stay as it is. However, we do have 5x squared plus 11x squared. Those are like terms, so I can add those together. So I get plus 16x squared. Then again, if you move on to the next thing, you can see we've got some more like terms. We've got 55x and 24x. They're both something x, so I can add those together. Okay, so I get plus 79x. And finally, you can see the 120 on the end is just on its own, so that doesn't have any other like terms to simplify. So when you have triple brackets, you're going to end up with what we call a cubic expression. This is cubic because it's, well, obviously x cubed. You're going to end up with 4 terms. Whereas before with quadratics, we end up with 4 terms that simplify down to 3 terms. With triple brackets, we end up with 6 terms that should simplify down to 4. ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d, effectively, isn't it? Those four terms. Okay, so we're going to expand and simplify the first two brackets as normal, then expand and simplify the third bracket. So from here, it's literally just repeat the same method over and over and over and over again. Okay, so if you feel confident, obviously pause the video, try this one out yourself, and then check your answer. But otherwise, obviously, we're still going to go through it together. Expand and simplify x minus 2 times x plus 1 times x plus 10. Okay, so my step one is to just expand and simplify the first two brackets as normal. So I've got x times x. This bit's quite straightforward because we practiced it a lot in the previous video. I'm going to whiz through it. X times 1 is obviously plus x. Minus 2 times x, we've got minus 2x. And finally, minus 2 times 1 is just minus 2. We've expanded it. Now we want to go and simplify the quadratic. So I know that the middle two should be able to be simplified if I've done it in that order. So I've got x squared. This is technically 1x, so plus 1 minus 2 is going to give us minus 1. So minus x minus 2. Okay, I've simplified the quadratic. Now I'm going to bring back my final bracket and expand all of this together. So I think in this example I'll actually just write it separately. So I've got x squared minus x minus 2. And then I've got x plus 10 in the other bracket. Okay, so again, draw all the lines. So I'm starting with the first term in the first bracket. So x squared times by x will give us x cubed. Then x squared again times by the second term in that second bracket, which is plus 10x squared. Now, you might want to use different colours for this, so I'm going to change the colour again. Minus x, which remember is minus 1, isn't it? Minus x times x. So we've got minus x squared. Then minus x times 10, which will give us minus 10x. And finally, the last term in the first bracket is minus 2. So minus 2 times x is minus 2x. And last of all, minus 2 times 10 is minus 20. Okay, so you've expanded it. We've ended up with 6 terms. And if you do it in the same order that I've done it, when you then come to simplify, you'll see that the like terms are next to each other, so it's a lot easier. The x cubed you'll not normally be able to simplify. Our next like terms we have 10x squared minus x squared. So that's going to be plus 9x squared. Then we've got minus 10x minus 2x, which gives us minus 12x. And finally, minus 20, which doesn't have any other like terms to simplify it with. So that's literally the whole method. Expand and simplify, and then expand and simplify again. Okay, definitely try this one out yourselves. Pause the video and then come back when you've got the answer. Expand and simplify x minus 9 times x plus 7 times x minus 1. We're just repeating the same process, okay? Expand the first two brackets first. So I'm going to whiz through that quickly. We've got x times x, which is x squared, x times 7, which is 7x, minus 9 times x, which is minus 9x, and finally, minus 9 times 7, which is minus 63. Step 2, simplify. Those two in the middle should be able to be simplified. We've got x squared, 7x minus 9x is minus 2x overall, minus 63. Okay, so we've expanded and simplified the first bit. Now we're going to I'm just going to rewrite it, just so I can see it clearly. So we've got that quadratic times by our final bracket, which was x minus 1. And this is where you might want to use multiple colours just to make sure you're not missing anything out. So expand and simplify again. X squared times x is x cubed. X squared times minus 1 is just minus x squared. Swap colour, we then got minus 2x times x, minus 2x squared, and minus 2x times by minus 1, which is just itself, so we've got positive 2x. And finally, we've got minus 63 times x, minus 63x. And the last one, minus 63 times minus 1 is positive 63. So we've expanded, now the final bit is to simplify again. Okay, your x cubed will probably just be on its own as well. We've got the x squareds together. So minus x squared, take away another 2x squared is minus 3x squared. And then we've got the x's together. So we've got 2x minus 63x, that's going to be minus 61x. And last of all, just 63 at the end. That is your answer. From here, the only way that it could really get any more tricky, I guess, is if you can see here they've got numbers in front of the x's, or just a really complicated version of negatives and positives, right? But otherwise, the method remains the same. So definitely pause the video for the next few questions and then come back and check your answers. Okay, so we have expand and simplify 2x plus 5 times x plus 2 times x plus 3. So expand and simplify the first two brackets as if they are just double brackets. We have 2x squared plus 4x plus 5x plus 10. And when I simplify it, the middle two are like terms. So I've got 2x squared plus 9x plus 10. Okay, so that's your first two brackets expanded. I'm going to rewrite it in a set of brackets so that I can then expand with the final bracket. So the last one we're missing is x plus 3, and start expanding again. So we've got 2x cubed in this case. Then we've got plus 6x squared. Change the colour so we don't get confused. Then we've got 9x squared. And then plus 27x. And the last two, we've got plus 10x and plus 30. So you've expanded everything. Last step is to simplify again. So we've got 2x cubed. Our like terms are all next to each other because we've done it in that order. So plus 15x squared and then plus 37x, and the 30 is just on its own at the end. So that's your answer. 2x cubed plus 15x squared plus 37x plus 30. Alright, so as you can see, we're still doing the exact same thing, but now we've just got a little bit more of a complex question because we have a few numbers in front of the x's as well. But work through it in exactly the same way you did before. Pause the video, give it a go, and then see what happens. So we're going to expand and simplify the first two brackets as if they're just double brackets. We've got 3x squared plus 6x plus x, or effectively 1x, but I don't need to write the 1. And finally, plus 2. Simplify that by combining the two middle terms if you've done it in this order. So we've got 3x squared plus 7x plus 2. I'm going to rewrite it so that I can then bring down my third bracket and expand that as well. So my third bracket was 5x minus 9. Now just repeat the same process, expand and simplify. So 3x squared times 5x, we're going to get 15x cubed. Okay, you'll always get an x cubed if you've got, obviously, three brackets with x's in each of them. 3x squared times minus 9, so be really careful with the negatives as well. We've got minus 27x squared. Change the colour just so you don't get confused. So we've got then the next term in that first bracket, 7x times 5x, which gives us 35x squared. And 7x times minus 9, which gives us minus 63x. Change the colour again for our last two. So 2 times 5x is going to be plus 10x. And lastly, 2 times minus 9, which is minus 18. So we've expanded everything. We've got all 6 terms here, and we just need to simplify for one last time. 15x cubed should be on its own if you've got a question like this. You don't need to combine it with anything. Then we've got our x squareds together. So minus 27x squared plus 35x squared will give us 8x squared overall. Then we can also combine the x's. So we've got minus 63x plus 10x and minus 53x. And obviously the minus 18 is just at the end. So that's your final answer. Okay, our next question is exactly the same again. So pause the video, try it out, and then come back when you have your answer. So we're expanding the first two brackets first. So we've got 8x times 4x, which is 32x squared. Then we've got 8x times minus 1, so we've got minus 8x. Then we have here, we've got minus 2 times 4x, which is minus 8x as well. And finally, minus 2 times minus 1 is positive 2. We then want to simplify the quadratic, so we've got 32x squared. 8x minus 8x is minus 16x and plus 2. That's your first bit. You want to then copy that into brackets so you can expand it with the final bracket that we're missing. So we've got 2x plus 4 as our other bracket. And expand and simplify again. So 32x squared times 2x gives us 64x cubed. 32x times 4 gives us 128x squared. Get a different colour. Minus 16x times 2x is minus 32x squared. Minus 16x times 4 is minus 64x. And change your colour again for the last two. So we've got 2 times 2x plus 4x. And lastly, 2 times 4, so plus 8. Now we want to simplify by collecting the like terms. We've got 64x cubed as itself. We've then got the x squareds that we can add together. So 128x squared, take away 32x squared, which gives us 96x squared. Then we've got the two x's, so minus 64x plus 4x, so minus 60x overall, and the 8 is still at the end. That's your final answer, 64x cubed plus 96x squared minus 60x plus 8. Our last question is a little bit different, and it's not necessarily triple brackets, but I did want to just throw it in here because I think it does come up sometimes, and sometimes students aren't really sure how to deal with it. So we are still going to deal with this in a very similar way. We're going to do it into two parts. So we have expand and simplify. 2x times by x plus 3 times by 4x minus 14. So you can see that the 2x isn't a bracket on its own, but we're still going to kind of treat it as that. What I'm going to do is expand the first two parts, I say parts because that's obviously not a bracket in itself, together. So that's effectively expanding single brackets. Then I'm going to expand it as double brackets. Now, you can actually expand these two double brackets first and then times everything by 2x if you want. But the point that I want to make here is what happens is a lot of students think they need to times both of these brackets by the 2x and then times those two brackets together, which is not the case. Okay, so we're not going to do this, that, and then this, and then that, and then times that together, because you'll have times it by 2x twice. Just stick with it in the same kind of way that we were doing the other questions. I'm going to look at the first two parts first, so it's a little bit faster, obviously. 2x times x is going to be 2x squared, and then 2x times 3. It's obviously going to be plus 6x. In that case, there's nothing to simplify, right? So you're just expanding because it's only single brackets. Then we can take that, put it into its own bracket, and expand it with the final third part. So now we've got 2x squared plus 6x times 4x minus 14. Okay, so expand, and then we will need to simplify this part. So 2x squared times 4x will give us 8x cubed. So we're still getting a cubic one here. And then we've got 2x times minus 14. So you've got minus 28x squared. Then we've got 6x times 4x. So we've got plus 24x squared. And lastly, 6x times minus 14, which gives us minus 84x. Okay, so we don't have this last term at the end. However, that's obviously because we didn't have as many terms to begin with in the first place. So we are going to be missing some in comparison to the previous examples. We do need to then simplify. Just check if there is anything you can simplify, any like terms. So we have 8x cubed, nothing to simplify there as normal. However, you can see we've got two lots of x squared, so we can simplify this bit here. Minus 28x squared plus 24x squared is going to be minus 4x squared overall, and then minus 84x at the end. It's not technically three brackets, it's not technically triple brackets. However, I just wanted to show you that. We'll do it in red so you can see. So don't do, oh, I'm just going to do, let me just rewrite it so you can see exactly what I mean by that. You know, don't expand it like this. Oh, okay, that's 2x squared and that's plus 6x, and then, oh, let me do that. So that's one bracket, and then let me do this bracket, which is then 8x squared, and then minus 28x, and then expand these together. Because you can see, even from the first bit, we're going to get 16. It's not the same thing, okay? You've only got 3 x's multiplied together. You should end up with x cubed as your highest power. Okay, so if you've got something on the outside, and I don't just mean if it's got an x, it might just be that there was just maybe 2 there. Whatever it is, if you have double brackets plus something on the outside, just multiply that something on the outside by the first bracket, then expand those next two brackets together, okay? Don't do that. So that is everything on expanding brackets. That was our final video for triple brackets, which, as I mentioned at the start of the video, is for higher tier only, okay? So if you are foundation and you've got it this far, that's great, but you won't technically need this in your exam. Go back and double check double brackets if you feel like you need to brush up on that, because obviously that does play a huge part in expanding triple brackets as well. Thanks for watching the video. Leave a comment down below, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.